Okay, welcome back everybody to another episode of Series 2 of Lunch Orders Bodies, where we're talking all things bodies. I am so excited to be joined today by April Hélène-Horton, aka the Bodzilla, who I will introduce in just 1 minute. Before I do, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands that we are streaming from today, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to thank VATE, the Victorian Association of the Teaching of English, for their support of this series and for their development of excellent classroom resources, which will be distributed at the end of Series 2. So April Hélène-Horton, aka the Bodzilla, is a passionate advocate for body acceptance, fat positivity, and is the epitome of unapologetic authenticity. She's bold, she's kind, she's passionate, but above all, she's unfaltering in her pursuit of joy. And I am so thrilled to have her here. Hello, April.
Hi, Beck. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. What a joy to be working with you again and in this space of bodies too. It's a perfect union. So I'm going to hand over to you so that you can deliver your little soapbox session and then we'll have a chat about it.
Amazing. Thank you. I am April and I'm also the Bodzilla, and what that means to me is that I'm a body love activist, that I want people to accept themselves and I want to be able to change the narrative on bodies through representation. Not just media representation, although that is really important to me and why I think it was really exciting for me in 2021 to be the first fat person in a bikini on a billboard. Yes, and check the photo out because it is pretty epic, and being able to stand in the Burke Street Mall and look at that photograph, see myself, I think, 600 feet tall or something, and see that was the first of many incredible moments, but also moments where I realised that I want to be the first, but I don't want to be the last. I don't see myself as the pinnacle of diversity. I don't see myself as a representative of anyone but myself. I think that our ability to be diverse and inclusive in our representation has to reach past the screen, whether that's the little screen, the medium screen, or the really big screen. And I think that also seeing people represented in positions of power, in leadership, in corporate spaces, sports, everywhere that you can imagine seeing someone to admire, you should be able to see yourself. And that doesn't just mean someone like me, who's a fat, black, queer person who's trying to explore what it means to them to be potentially a person with a disability. Being a neurodivergent person, or being a parent, being married, being someone who has experienced a myriad of things in my 39 years makes me only representative of myself, but it does really make me passionate about wanting to make sure that other people feel seen and represented. One of the really hard things about growing up in the 90s, aside from the really terrible fashion such as low-rise jeans, was the fact that every single magazine cover perpetuated the idea of what was better, who wore it better, comparisons of bodies, look at this person who's changed their body one way or the other, praise for people who've become smaller, conjecture for why someone might have become larger, and constant barrages of you can do this to change your body, you should do this to change the way that people see you, specifically narratives around how women should pursue the gaze of men and how to win them over. I don't want that for the people of the future of any gender. I don't want anybody to be pursuing the love or the attraction of someone else. I want them to pursue the love that they have for themselves. And some people talk about self-love as if it means lighting candles in the bathtub or taking the day off when you're not feeling well. That is love, because I think taking care of someone that you care deeply for and doing nice things for someone, you should be that person for yourself. So from my point of view, when I talk about body love, that isn't just about saying, I'm fat and I'm okay with it. I am fat and I am okay with it. But the point is, if you're someone who has struggled to accept the way that they look, and that has coloured your experience of life because that makes you struggle to accept who you are, to understand what's wonderful about you, then I want you to be able to change your body image, because that's going to change your self-image and how you believe that you can do things, what you can see yourself doing. And again, that representation in spaces like workplaces where you know that you could get a promotion because someone who looks like you or has the same abilities as you do has achieved that. You can't be what you can't see, and I want to make sure that everybody feels seen. I also believe that the strong messaging that we've received over time about body image is harming people, and the Paying the Price report that the Butterfly Foundation and Deloitte brought out earlier this year proves that. We've seen a significant increase, and I do have some stats, and because I'm not great at remembering things off the top of my head, I'm going to grab my little small screen and read them out. But the most significant impact of eating disorders is by far on an individual's well-being. Almost 70% of the cost is attributed to that. We know that in the last 10 years, both the number of people affected and the cost of the effect of eating disorders has increased by 21% and 36% respectively. And that last year, in 2023, there were almost 1,300 people who died from eating disorders. Women are twice as likely as men to suffer from an eating disorder, and 27% of the people who experience eating disorders are aged younger than 19. And that's why when I get up in the morning and I get dressed in the clothes that make me feel like I wanted to feel when I was 15, but I couldn't find them because they didn't make them in my size, I do that for me. I do that for the me who was in that range of people who saw those pervasive messages in media about bodies and thought, it's me, I'm the problem. And I think that it's true to say, quoting that songstress, Taylor Swift, hi, it's me, that's not limited to people who experience the bias based on race, based on body size. That body image issue affects people who look and have the abilities of, there are as many unique scenarios as there are people. But there is that constant that men, women, and people of every gender experience dissatisfaction about their bodies, and that can start as early as the age of 4 years old. So we need to change the narrative on what it looks like to love yourself, because people think loving yourself is egotistical. It's not. And people think that accepting other people means that you're a lefty, soft person who doesn't understand the importance of the real things in life. And I think that is what capitalism has taught us. It's what colonisation has taught us, is that that tolerance is weak and that we should be harder, always harder on ourselves and on each other. And actually what would be really powerful is if we were actually a little bit softer on ourselves and on each other and give ourselves the acceptance and grace that we offer to other people. I think also the importance of being boundaried in that acceptance and being able to say what's important to you, what you will and won't tolerate. Like, I think body love and the activism that I am trying to bring to light and what I'm pursuing is the idea that you can say, I won't tolerate that. I won't tolerate conversations about bodies that make me feel bad about myself. I'm unfollowing. I'm making it harder for people to talk about those things in front of me because I'm active in my beliefs and I'm vocal in them. I know that there are people that I am friends with and have been friends with who don't really understand why all of a sudden I feel this way, and lots of them might attribute that to you've given up because you failed at being a thin person and so you've given up. No, I think that's the opposite of the truth. I think I finally accepted who I am because I deserve to be fine about who I am, and also because when I had a child I realised that I was going to project everything onto him, and so if I was going to project things onto this person that I love, they should be good things. And then I realised that I should have that same love and respect for myself. If I'm going to project things onto other people, it should be good things. And that doesn't mean, that fake positivity, that kind of like just turn your frown upside down. I love everything about myself. I don't love everything about myself every day, but there are certain parts that I love. I love my sense of humour, except when it gets me into trouble. I love my hair, except when it can't be tamed, like Miley Cyrus. And I love my fashion sense, except when I put an outfit together and go, that doesn't look the same as I thought it would in my head. But guess what? That doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me not as good as someone else. And if I was thin, this outfit still wouldn't look good because it's not actually about the fact that a thin body is better or looks better than a fat one. It's just that we believe that because so many people have told us that over time. I think that For many people, they expect body love to look like never ever having self-criticism. That's simply not the case. But it's about understanding fundamental truths. So I can criticise the fact that, I've woken up this morning, I just feel like I don't like how my face looks today. That's a real thing. That can happen to anyone. But doesn't make me a bad person. Doesn't mean that I'm not good at my job. Doesn't mean that I'm not a good parent or a good friend. I might just be thinking, nothing's sitting right on my skin when I'm putting makeup on. Or maybe, the products I'm using are not right for me. Doesn't make me a bad person. I was speaking to somebody recently and they said, how did you change that voice in your head? And for me, it was understanding that what other people say about me, they're not the truths. So when somebody says, whether directly or indirectly, that me being a fat person who's proud of who I am and not ashamed, because obviously people want you to stay small and stay ashamed because that helps them feel bigger and more important. I think, I just sort of say, well, it's probably true that if you were to say to me, you're a turtle, I would know that that wasn't true because I believe that and I understand it. And I think in the same way, when I hold beliefs about myself that are, you are a good person, someone saying you're not a good person, I go, well, that's not true. And so as simplistic as that comparison is, I think it's useful to understand the fundamental truths about yourself, which are you are not inherently a bad person no matter your body size or your abilities, your gender, your race. You are contributing something valuable to the world no matter what it is that you contribute, because everybody has their place. You don't need to change the world, but if you want to, you can and you should, because frankly, it's not going so well. And I think if you really believe all of those things are true and you're unshakable in those beliefs, then no one's going to be able to tell you otherwise. And that's what I want. I want people to believe with their whole hearts that they deserve to feel good about themselves and to feel good about other people. I think that people who love themselves love other people better because they accept them for who they are and they offer them grace, and they're practiced in that. It is an art. It's something you have to do every day, is choose to go, I'm not going to listen to negative thoughts about myself. I'm not going to engage in a conversation in my mind about whether I'm good or bad or ugly. All of those things are subjective. They change day to day. And at the end of the day, what you know about yourself should be that you're a good person, that if you're not the person that you always wanted to be, that you're becoming that person simply by knowing who it is that you want to be. And so I think that representation is a critical part of changing the way we see ourselves, because when you look, Heartbreak High is a great example, the recent series, you look on TV and you see someone and you go, that makes me feel like I'm understood, that I'm valuable, that people are interested in what I have to say. That bolsters your belief. I think representation in non-public settings, such as workplaces, allow you to believe that you can achieve things, that you can do things. They're more likely to see you do something incredible because you have the confidence, and that comes from being represented in different places. People talk sometimes about how, where people get the audacity from. That's where that confidence that, well, why should I not do the thing? Isn't that what I'm meant to do? Because that's all I've seen and all I've had represented to me. I think that we should all strive to be a little bit more audacious in what we do so that we can be truly genuine and make diversity the standard rather than a specialty, and inclusion business as usual rather than, something that we strive for and have targets for. And I understand that that has to be part of it because we have to set a bar for ourselves to be able to achieve it. But at the same time, I think we move slowly and we could move more quickly. And I also think that conversations around representation are often difficult because people feel uncomfortable about the idea of having to give up their place in those spaces. And I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay for you to give up your place in one space to another person. In fact, I would encourage that. I think as a light-skinned person of colour who has experienced being fat in a number of different ways over my life, I don't expect to be the only person allowed to talk on this subject. In fact, I really hope that when people engage with what I have to say, they also engage with what I share, which is other people's viewpoints. It's important to me not only to have a platform, but to be a platform for other people. And that's because I truly believe that diverse points of view will lead us much further than if we were to just stick with what feels safe, what feels palatable. And so I think that that's the most important thing that we can do, is make ourselves feel a little bit uncomfortable, take a little risk, having a hard conversation. It can be really difficult, but doing that when you feel confident in yourself and know that even if someone you disagree with makes you feel bad about yourself, that what they're saying about you isn't true, because you know the truth about yourself, and that is that you are a good person, that what you look like doesn't change that, and that you don't have to win the love of other people. You just need to give yourself the love that you deserve.
That was beautiful. And so much of it resonated with me that I almost don't know where to start. I think the idea of becoming a mother and having that moment where you think, oh God, everything that I say, that I do about my body is going to be imprinted into this body from birth, basically. Makes you really aware. And I think that that's sort of at the heart of what we're doing here today, is trying to bring that awareness into this space so that we can start to trouble or shine a light on the many damaging, harmful voices that are telling people that A, their bodies are bad, that B, their bodies are actually need to be controlled before they can express any other facet of their personality, and see that their bodies need to adhere to certain standards of desire in order to be valued or worthwhile. So I wanted to think about naming and think about like shining that light into spaces of discomfort, because I do feel that as much as I'm here for body positivity in some ways, I'm definitely here for body love, for body acceptance, for like radical self-love. But I do think sometimes that this blanket wave of positivity can be problematic in itself, because if people don't relate to it, then it becomes a thing that they force themselves to say but don't really believe.
Yeah.
Can we start by talking about the name, the Bodzilla? Because it feels like, in a world that says your body should be small, you should fit in, that the Bodzilla is a direct act of defiance. So where did it come from? What does it mean to you?
It came from a conversation with a friend who's a photographer, and we'd actually talked about, she'd said to me, I love all this stuff you post, which was all just very kind of, now I think about it, quite bland memes and things about body image, just on my personal Insta. And she's like, you should do that. You should make that a thing. And I didn't have the confidence to do that. I didn't think that it was important what I had to say. And she bolstered me in that way and said, yeah, let's do it. And we just bounced around some words. And then, you know, and she was saying like boss and bod and babe and all these words. And I thought, no, none of those really, even at that time, I knew that being a boss babe really wasn't for me. And then she just said Bodzilla. And I was like, that's it. That's it, because I immediately, it elicited this imagery of, you know, I think there'll be 100 times that people have replicated this trope of like the giant woman storming through the city, like Gojira, and the idea that, you know, tearing up the buildings and being like, rah! And but all of this body BS, just tearing it up, screaming at the sky, like that was, I immediately imagined being just like, yeah, I'm going to take out this whole situation, that really powerful imagery of just storming through and being like, no, you know, decimating negative body image.
Because that is the essence, isn't it, of like taking up space physically and metaphorically.
Yeah, and also having always been quite afraid of being big, in the sense that people were always like, you know, like they're sitting like this and trying to be small and keeping you, because you didn't want to take up space. And I think that's a real experience for lots of people. And I think, again, like I said, true for everyone. I don't think that, but I think that obviously people who are in bigger bodies experience that in a real way in relation to the way that they're ascribed an amount of space on airplanes and trains and other places like that. So that kind of breaking out of that smallness is really powerful, and I think demonstrates to people that you don't need to be ashamed, you don't need to stay small. And I think especially for people who have experienced, misogyny and been part of conversations where they've been told they're too loud and they're too much, I think be that.
Yeah.
Be to everything, please.
And in doing that, you're making it something to actually strive for, not just excuse, not to go, I love myself despite my body, but to go, no, I love this. I love this power and this space and, give me more of it.
And I think that it for me, it isn't about necessarily, it's not about, I suppose, celebrating that bigness is so much more about the emotional side of it. Being unapologetic in my physical bigness allows me to be joyous in my emotional bigness.
Let's talk about the billboard then, because that's the manifestation of this
bigness.
bigness.
My goodness,
the
biggest billboard, I think in Australia and perhaps even in the hemisphere. I actually am not sure. At the time, notable sized billboard.
Extraordinary. Like, what an extraordinary image, both the billboard itself and also the photo of you with the billboard. I mean, talk about, manifesting joy. You look so happy.
Yeah.
Like, tell me, what did it feel like? Did you at any point feel anything but joy, like knowing that this was the first of its kind? And knowing that there would be people who would feel really uncomfortable because people, I think, because we don't talk about it, they feel really uncomfortable talking about fatness.
Yeah. Oh, don't say that. You're beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm both.
Yeah, I know.
Stop it. I think I was absolutely speechless at first. So we got there very early in the morning, and the billboard itself was part of a broader project, a TV show that was shown on the SBS asking what do people really think about, and in this case they used the word obesity. It's not a word that I use, but that was the conversation. And I stood there with my family, with my husband and my son, and I just went, I can't actually believe it. And I will cry when I say this, but I said to my son, "Who's that?" "It's Mummy." "What's she doing?" "You're at the beach." It's that simple.
It's that simple.
And so, I think I felt a pang, there are going to be people who go, the usual things. I was at 36, is that right? 36 years old. There's nothing I hadn't heard when it came to what I should or should not do, why no one wants to see that, or whatever. But I thought, well, that's not true, because they commissioned a billboard.
Yeah,
and I was photographed by someone
that.
who Jez Smith has photographed some of the most famous and incredible people, Serena Williams, Kate Blanchett, and me. So I thought, well, that's simply not the case. There is obviously a need for this conversation. And also, I think my willingness to put myself out there was that I thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? People will be like, "Oh my God, you're fat." No, really? Oh my God, a revelation. It's not new information. And so I think I haven't worn that bikini since, because it is made of fluffy material and not really conducive to actual swimming. But I've kept it, and sometimes I look at it and I just go, because I just think, yeah, you did that. That's incredible.
Have you had any, obviously the response from your own kid, super special, but have you had any other amazing responses come directly to you? I can only imagine myself at 15 seeing a billboard like that and going, this is okay?
Yeah.
Nobody told me. Have people reached out?
I think, I had a lot of people, mostly people my own age or older, saying, "I'm so happy that my child gets to see this."
Yeah.
So not a lot of direct feedback from kids, but also people in that kind of adolescent age group are not super forthcoming with praise. Generally, that's not really the vibe. So I haven't had a lot of conversations with young people directly about how it impacts them. But yeah, definitely from a parent's point of view. So sharing our views of being able to sort of go, that's such a change. And definitely some people talking about how it's healed their inner child, which is pretty special.
It's interesting, I think, to think about how people are really able to recognise the issues with the kind of language and representations around fatness and anything that diverges from the dominant, ideal body when it comes to how they want their kids to feel about their bodies. And yet, or even their friends, like they're like, I think that's where that response of, oh no, you're not fat, you're beautiful comes from, because they think, I would never say that about you, that's an insult. But they say it about themselves and they'll say it about other people. Like I reckon some of the most harmful things that I heard as an adolescent weren't things that were said directly to me about me, but that were said to me about other people.
Yeah, I think that, and this sentiment rings true across so many of the issues that we face today, but freedom from things that harm everyone is for all people, not just people you like. So I think that my experience of hearing someone I used to know had kids and the child had their photo taken, their school photo. And when the school photo came back, you love to show everyone your school photo, the annual, look at me, I'm so cute. Or look at this terrible hairdo in my case.
So many.
But I still I want that photo, I want to put it on display because now I'm like, oh, that was hilarious of me. And the child, who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, saying, oh, and that's my teacher, she could lose a few pounds. Where does a 6-year-old get that language from? It's not from Spot. It's not from, well, it might be from Peppa Pig, actually, to be fair. But that type of conversation, and I'm just like, and also looking at that person and thinking, because that person, to me, I wouldn't have even characterise them as being someone in a larger body. And I understand that a feeling of, we talk a lot about, we talk a lot about unpacking the idea of feeling fat. And I think that's where also understanding that fat is not a feeling, but also the idea of discomfort in a changed body is an okay feeling to have. I think people who experience pregnancy, body changes due to medical reasons, or just regular old eating food and body changes, I think understanding that there's no moral value attached to a changed body. I think people that I've heard speak on this stage who've spoken about how motherhood has changed their body, none of those people have changed whether they're a good person or whether they are a great parent. And I think the idea that those messages are not in a vacuum. When you say those things to yourself, even when they're not out loud, you're projecting those, that's your beliefs. And those beliefs are going to harm other people because they come out. It doesn't always have to be a conversation about weight and bodies. It could be, what are you eating? That's not very healthy. Don't have too much of that. I think the ongoing conversations that we've had about the way that educators are asked to or expected to deal with conversations around food and whether or not they align with what the conversations that are happening in the home. I think it's really powerful, and I value educators so highly, and I think it's really important that they have messaging in their hands that is going to be positive for children. And I agree that we need to teach children about nutrition because everybody should understand the difference between eating something because it's going to provide you with a nutritional benefit and eating something because it tastes nice. My son says to me the other day, I think Healthy Harold's been in the schools recently. That's what I believe this conversation was stemmed from. I love Healthy Harold. Giraffes are amazing. But he said, oh, these, whatever it was that he was eating, they're not very good for you. I said that the point of them is not to be good for you. The point is that they taste good. That's why you also have to have whatever I've told you to have. I think it was him wanting to eat his dessert first. And I was like, it doesn't really matter what order you eat it in. It's about the fact that you understand the purpose of this particular thing is for it to be yummy and to make your heart feel happy. And this is about making your bones strong or your eyes or whatever it might be. And that both things are good for you in different ways. So I think understanding good food and bad food is not a useful way of categorising things. Nutrition versus happiness. Because we all know chocolate is good for you because it allows you to have a chemical response in your body that makes you happy. And happy people, I feel like, why do we want less of them? We don't.
Yeah. Much happiness, read chocolate, ice cream, and also a solid bag of chips.
Yeah, all three. Mix them together.
I reckon one of the first kind of light bulb moments for me was when I said something about McDonald's being bad, and I mean, I actually stand by that now for many other reasons.
Absolutely.
However, in terms of this like good, bad food dynamic, the light bulb moment for me is that had become such an entrenched part of my vocab from growing up that was the moment that I started to reflect on all of that internalised language. And that's where I think this idea that if we can expose that as like the annoying crickets in the party, then we can stamp them out. Because I think until we do that, there's often a real ambiguity around the things that make us feel bad about our own bodies, feel bad about other people's bodies, fear fatness, fear difference. Like, until we can really draw out and stamp out where that comes from in the language, in the attitudes of the people and places around us, then we're not going to be able to move very far forward.
Absolutely. And I think talking about body acceptance and to what I was saying earlier, accepting the fact that you will not stay the same as you always have been, and removing that messaging around whether or not you are good or the food is good and you eating that is naughty.
Yeah.
I think the idea that we should strive towards growth and change and continuing to kind of evolve as a person over time, that does usually mean that you change. And for some people, I'm still wearing this thing and I wore in high school and I'm 40 years old now. I love that for you because it means that you haven't bought any new clothes, and I feel positive about that for you and for the planet.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. I think we just are so ready to demonise things that, because we don't understand it, we want to just eradicate it. And I think that that's true about so many people. And I completely agree that McDonald's as a business and as a corporation, bad, very bad. We hate you, boycott. But the idea of fast food itself is sort of like, is this just the right choice for me today? Yeah. Should I just buy some hot chips from the local takeaway and just have those and enjoy them because that's just what is going to make me feel good today? I think understanding that it doesn't mean anything about who you are if you choose to eat those things. And also the incredibly important aspects that often get overlooked around socioeconomic access to food and global access to food. You know, I think that understanding there's no moral value attached to food is really critical. Yeah, absolutely. We are running out of time, but very quickly, before I hand over for your final thought to leave our audience with, I just want to hear about the work you're doing with the Butterfly Foundation. Can you tell us a bit about it and why it's so important to you to be working in this space as the kind of next step in your fat activism? Yeah, absolutely. I love working with the Butterfly Foundation because I've seen where they've come from, and I know that they themselves as an organisation really powerfully embraced the idea of talking about lived experience and about pushing out the messaging around changing the face of what an eating disorder looks like. Engaging someone like me to talk with their audience, you know, over the last few years has meant that they're able to really, I suppose, help people understand that having an eating disorder can look like being a 15-year-old white girl who takes ballet classes and doesn't eat any food, but it can also look like me. Yeah. It can look like the guy that lives next door. It can literally look like anyone, and I really think that a charity like Butterfly, they do incredible work. They're staffed by incredible people, and I believe strongly that the conversations that we're having and the programs that they've developed, they have school-based programs, as well as the broader kind of media messaging that they do, the Paying the Price report that they did with Deloitte this year, which was the second report. They did one just over 10 years ago as well. I just strongly believe in the idea of they have done what we're wanting everybody to do, which is evolve past their original pursuit to be for more people and to be for everyone. And so I feel really strongly about supporting them and working with them. I'm going to be working on some upcoming creator stuff with them for online. And I also have, I'm really supportive of their school programs and things like that, because I want to know that, even though my child will be attending school and hearing from different health-based messaging programs, and all of them have their place and their value, I think it's really important for us to be able to have good conversations with children about hard topics, specifically in my case and my space. The conversations about food and bodies and how it's important to understand that food is fuel for your body and movement for joy is going to keep your body healthy, but also, I suppose helping educators and adults, caregivers, understand that, there's no moral value attached to health, but the importance of also their healthy mindsets around food and bodies are going to help and support these young people to become stronger and more resilient against what we know is a huge blight on their age group in terms of body image.
Totally. And making space for people to access health by not saying health looks like this, and therefore if you're not doing that, it's not for you.
Because awareness raising is really key, but also helping people understand that there's access for them, for anyone. Again, can't see what you can't be what you can't see, and if that means help seeking and support seeking, and also obviously raising awareness of the profile of Butterfly to help them receive more funding, because the more money they have, the more people they can help.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I would love to keep talking to you, but we've run out of time. Can you leave us with one final thought or question for the audience to take away?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like every single person who's tuned into this live stream to take the opportunity to unlearn one thing about themselves and learn something new. So if you've always believed something negative about yourself or about your body, I want you to go away and I want you to work on unlearning that by unfollowing people that make you feel bad, following people who make you feel good, and making sure that every time you hear something about yourself, you just fact check it, because you're definitely not the bad person that the media would have you believe.